Hey, what's up, folks? How's it going? This is Avij here, and welcome to DevSecOps. So let's start with today's interview question. So today we are going to discuss about test coverage in SonarQube. And we'll be discussing a couple of scenario-based questions. So stay till the end. The first question is, why is coverage tool required if SonarQube already shows coverage? If you go to SonarQube dashboard, it has some coverage, right? If coverage is less than 80%, then you should fail the build, or you can change this value. Like in your project, you may decide that 70% is good enough, right? But uh, why do we need a separate coverage tool? So what is the answer? Answer is SonarQube does not generate code coverage. It imports coverage report generated by other tools like JaCoCo, Java, then LCOP, JavaScript, TypeScript, coverage.py by Python, right? So these tools generate some XML file or test report. And in the SonarQube, you mention from where to pick up this details, that report. And SonarQube will parse that report and generate that uh, quality get report, means quality get results, whether it's matching, like meeting 80% criteria or not, whatever criteria you have defined. Okay. So let's see what is the coverage. So for example, there is a function developer has written check discount. So check discount, and they have written a test function also. The test function is calling test check discount. So it's passing only 1500. So it will be executing this code, right? It will never execute this code. So that means it's a 50% coverage. This part of the code is never getting executed because in his test is calling only this discount bit 1500. So it's if condition is tested, else is never tested. So if branch is covered, else is not covered, so coverage is 50%. So how do you get 100% coverage? You write more test cases, which are going to cover those parts. But if I use here check discount 500, so it will go to the else part of the code. Else part of the code, no discount. Right? So that I will get 100% coverage. Now, like there are different, as I said, there are different coverage tools. Like for Java, it can be JaCoCo. It generates this coverage report in this path, target site, JaCoCo, XML. And in the SonarQube, you mentioned that path, Sonar coverage, JaCoCo XML report path. Similarly, for JavaScript, uh, report is generated in this path, coverage LCOP info. And then you import in SonarQube using this path. Now let's go to some scenario-based question. SonarQube shows 0% coverage, but developers insist unit tests are passing. What could be wrong? Is 0% coverage? Developer is insisting unit tests are passing. So developers are running test cases, they are passing, but maybe path is wrong. Maybe it's not able to import that report. Maybe for some reason report is not getting generated. So test may be running successfully, but the coverage report is not being generated or imported into SonarQube. So check report generation, check the report location whether path is correct or not. Okay. Check SonarQube coverage path configuration. Why coverage suddenly drop to zero after project restructure? After project restructure, what happens? Maybe path is changed, right? You restructure the the report path may not be matching with whatever is configured. So you need to check the path. Dropping to zero means mostly like it's not able to generate the report, or it's a report is generated in some different path is not correct. Management wants 80% coverage only for newly added code. How would you implement this? So only for newly added code if you want. So how would you implement this? So in the configure a quality gate based on coverage and new code. And the coverage, you can do coverage on the new code. Okay. Instead of coverage on complete code, you can set it coverage on the new code. Next question is, why is coverage on new code often more important than overall coverage? So it prevents new technical debt without forcing team to fix all legacy code immediately. So what it means, so let's say legacy code, there were no unit test cases, and there are like maybe 10,000, 20,000 lines of code, and there are no unit test cases written. Now you are defining new process where SonarQube coverage report and all these things will be set up in the CI/CD pipeline. So if you are going to write unit test case for the old code, it will take a lot of time. So what you can do, whatever happened with the old code is okay. But for new code, we are going to write new test case, new unit test cases. We are going to have at least 70-80% code coverage, and we are not going to introduce any new bugs, right? So only you are focusing on the new code. You don't want to introduce bugs in the new code. Whatever happened with the old code is fine. So many projects, legacy projects, when they move to new process or when CI/CD is implemented, the focus is on mostly on the new code. So that whatever technical debt is there, let it be there, and as you can clean the code as you go. So slowly you keep adding new test cases in the old legacy code also. A project has 40% overall coverage, but 90% coverage on new code. Should the PR pass? Should the pull request pass or not? So it depends on the your quality gate criteria. So if you decide that the PR request is only for the new request, so whatever changes you have done, uh, it's on the new code. And if you are meeting that 80% criteria or your project criteria, it should pass. So if the quality gate is based on the new code coverage, yes, it should pass. So it doesn't matter whether it's 40% overall coverage. If PR fails because coverage dropped from 85% to 82%, what happened? Why code coverage dropped? And because of the pull request. So new code is pushed and the new code doesn't have sufficient test coverage. So as I shown that developer has written maybe less number of test cases and which are not covering all parts of the code. That's why code coverage dropped. Developers are writing tests, but SonarQube still fails the quality gate. Even if they're writing a lot of test cases, but it's not covering all the parts. So they need to check where the code coverage is missing, and they need to write test cases to cover that part. They should not write unnecessary tests. Like they need to see whether their code is covering all the parts. Yeah, here this is simple, but if it is a like huge code base and complicated logic is there. So here, if you write one test case, check discount 1,500, check discount 2,000. Both test cases are going to cover this first if because 1,500 and 2,000 both are greater than 1,000. So you need to be careful and see like how it will cover the other branch. So this looks very simple, but the code is huge and logic is complex. Your new test cases may not cover the other branches or other block of code. A project shows 90% test success but 20% coverage. Is this possible? Yes, it's possible. 90% test success, whatever unit test cases you are executing, 90% is successful. But whatever unit test cases you have written, it is covering only 20% block of the code. So whatever test cases, maybe you have written 100 test cases. Out of that, 90 test cases passed, 10 test cases failed. So you have some issue with your code, you are going to fix that. But these 100 test cases, 90 test cases pass, so 90% success rate. But these 100 test cases covering only 20% of the code. Code coverage means only 20% of the code is getting executed by those 100 test cases. So it's possible. Yes, test can pass while covering only a small portion of the code. So that's it for today. Hope you like this video. Please like, share, and subscribe. And see you again in the next video.